Go ahead and call this August 31st Dallas County School Board Work Session to order. Dr. Arbogast, looks like the first item on the agenda is the middle school visit report.
Yes, sir. Shared with you last night just a document that had some takeaways from the middle school visit. I'm going to let Ms. Mustang go through that with you, and there's some of the administrators that went on those trips with Ms. Mustang and myself, and they're also here if you had any questions and that sort of thing. So with that, Ms. Mustang, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you, thank you.
Thank you.
Here. You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. First, good morning again. What you have is just on the first page is just some takeaways. This doesn't contain any studies or anything like this. What configuration is best? It's just we went to visit Northside Middle School and we went to visit Peterstown Pre-K-8 School, and these are the things that we saw. And so we're just reporting out. I do have Mr. Mills, Mr. Gautier, Ms. Tibbs, and Jessica, did you, and with us that were also on the meeting in our visit. Dr. Brown and Dr. Arbogast also attended, and Northside Middle School. So you see that Northside Middle School, they house, it is 6 through 8. They have 653 students. They do have a 41.9% free and reduced eligibility, which is about comparable to what we have here in our county. The first noticeable thing when we went in, Northside Middle School has a true safe schools entrance that, we had to log in, present several different, I think we had to have a picture made and things like that. So they had a true safe school entrance that, of course, our middle schools do not have. Macy does have a little separate entrance, you all been there, but other than that, they had a safe schools entrance. We did meet with the principal and one assistant principal at a time. You can see the information that we got. Of course, it's 6 through 8. They operate on an A-B block schedule. The way that they schedule their students, our students are in a homeroom and they kind of go together. They travel from class to class in clusters where these students take specific courses according to what they want. So it's not like a middle school type, not like an elementary type thing, everybody moving in a homeroom. It is more tailored to what that student wants. So it's an individual schedule. They have 3 administrators in their building. Of course, the principal is the curriculum and over the curriculum, oversight of the building, all the procedures. And I think they told us that he had the grade 6 discipline caseload, probably because there's more discipline in 6th grade. The assistant principal, number 1, does the curriculum and master schedule. That was primarily her job. And then they had assistant principal number 2, which did the 8th grade discipline caseload, but what their large responsibility was athletics. They have a true middle school athletic program that I shared some information with you there. The administrator said stay with their caseload throughout their students' attendance. They do have 2 counselors there at the school that had different duties. All the administrators work the athletic events. That was one thing that we talked a great deal about. I think we were interested, we spent a little bit of time on their athletic program. That, in April, that was sort of maybe a hot topic here in Giles where we were talking about middle school soccer and getting that involved. So we wanted to know what their procedures were in middle school athletics. I did attach all of their schedules in the back. They're the Norsemen, and so that's their middle school schedules and the things that they do. Different ones of you, I didn't run off the whole packet. Some of you have different schedules. But they do have football, baseball, basketball. They have volleyball. wrestling. They have a pretty healthy athletic schedule, and how they do it, it's sort of like a cohort, and they have different schools that got together and they meet, and then they come up with a schedule, and they travel amongst a little cohort of about 9 schools for their middle school program. Of course, just like with us, what I think their issue with that would be is, transportation and bus drivers and getting kids to and from games, but that they do have a pretty healthy athletic schedule. The building is, the way they have their buildings, they're clustered, like they'd have 6th grade here, 7th grade, 8th grade wing. They gave us a nice tour of the building. It's kind of a different configuration there, to where they have a middle school, but yet the Roanoke built the high school gym there at the middle school. So they have this huge gym and everything. You've all probably been to maybe a Northside game or something, but I thought that was a little different, how they built the gym onto the middle school. They did have 2 gyms, which Peterstown Middle School, 2 gyms is pretty much what they feel like is a necessity to get all of the activities and things that they need. We all agree with that, the 2 gym type thing, okay. The one thing that their students are afforded an opportunity to have that our students are not is their nice elective programs. Their middle school students have a choice of theater, drama, music, poetry. They have STEM labs. They have different electives. Their kids can take some CTE courses at the middle school level. And so our kids don't have that in Giles County, where we have a lot of electives to offer our kids. We have some, and we try to do the best that we can with the time that we have, but all of those students have that opportunity. Our students, if you're in band, you get music, but you don't get art, because we have an art teacher that travels amongst the schools. Again, I had this listed. The sports are handled at the middle school level. 6th graders are invited to participate in some of the athletic events, I guess, depending on their ability. Let's see. The one thing that we also found that it was interesting was how the middle school and the high school share staff. You can see the high school from the middle school, and they both operate on the same schedule. Like the high school's on an AB block, the middle school's on an AB block, and when they're offering, like the French teacher would be teaching French at the high school, but also come and teach French at the middle school, or Spanish, or whatever it is, their foreign language. So because the 2 schools are on the same schedule, they are able to share employees, which we thought was a pretty interesting concept. Do you all have anything to add about that? I mean, just that.
I think they did share concerns that was difficult in sharing, but they've been able to cross a lot of hurdles that helped, but they did say that was one of the biggest challenges in scheduling.
Yeah, so they have to make sure, the coordination between the 2 schools. The CTE programs that the kids had an opportunity to take, they have family consumer sciences, tech ed, and the business information technology. It's at middle school, I know when I was a middle school teacher, the thing that you want is, like, kids really don't know what they're interested in, so you want to give them an opportunity to explore a lot of different areas. And so that's, I thought that was what they did really well, was their CTE electives. The course for the program area, 6th grade had the business courses, 7th grade business, 8th grade business. We saw that in their schedules. They have 54 teachers and they have 1 SRO. Anything anybody want to add about Northside? Mike, Paula, anybody kind of left out? Kind of covers it. Any questions?
Did they, has the schedule always been like that? I mean,
With Northside?
Yeah.
I think for some, I don't know how long, I don't know how long, but I don't think it's been I think that's what they've been operating under.
Right.
But I don't know for how many years or anything.
I wonder what their score's like.
They have, I looked up on the school accreditation and they have level ones. But I didn't go into chronic absenteeism or anything like that. On the school accreditation website, I just briefly looked over, like got some of the demographic information, the free and reduced and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So Lisa, the one thing that jumps out at me of everything is the electives that they're able to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And we had talked about our job being to find out what it would take for us to be able to do that as we're set up now, and if that's possible. And so could we do that, or what would we have to add to help our middle school administrators be able to offer those electives?
Well, when we went to Peterstown Middle School, they were a little bit more, they were pre-K 8, and I think they have 754 students now when they've combined. And they did their CTE just a little bit different, which I thought we could probably do, and I did ask Mr. White about that. So I'll just go ahead and talk about Peterstown Middle School, and then we can answer your question.
Sure.
Okay. So Peterstown Middle School, of course, it's gonna be a little different than us. That's a brand new $24 million building sitting out there.
It would cost you 60 today.
Huh?
That would cost you 60 today.
That would cost, double, triple that today. That project has been in the works when I was a middle school principal back in 2005. So it's, that's how long it took them to work out everything. And then, of course, Mr. J.B. Buckland was kind enough to sell us land. So that's where we finally got, because people did not want to move. So Mr. Buckland finally, we did give that, the land out there. It is in a beautiful setting. It is sitting on top, it's beautiful out there,
Also the best hayfield we ever had.
and the best hayfield they ever had.
And people should realize, Lisa, that West Virginia works
Different,
totally differently than we do. They have a
Correct.
board authority,
yes,
which sets
School
way
building
back
authority.
towards the middle of the state, and they make the decision, and they
Yes.
fund.
yes,
Well, they funded 16 million of the 24, is that right? It was 8 million that
Yes.
Monroe County had to come up with.
yes. And Monroe County also has a school levy that they pass. They passed a levy, I think, 3 or 4 different times. What a levy does, at the elementary school, you can't fundraise. They give you $100 per kid, $100 a head per kid, and that eliminates a lot of the fundraising. They can still do some things, but that, then the school, they have a local school improvement council that is in charge of, I guess, this $75,000 that they get to allocate for their schools and how they want to spend it. And then the local school improvement council comes to the school board, and the school board hears it. And, the school board does have some input, but basically it's local school improvement council money. So yes, it's totally different, and they have a lot of money. The school still, even though they're in one building, they run as 2 separate schools. They have 2 principals, not a principal and assistant principal. They have an elementary pre-K 4 principal, and then they have a 5-8 principal. And I misspelled principals there, sorry. The elementary, they share a commons area, they share a cafeteria, and I said they do have 2 gyms. They don't share teachers they have elementary teachers and they have middle school teachers. Because in West Virginia, you have to be certified. If you're a middle school teacher, you have to be certified in math, you have to be certified in English. So, the 2, they don't share employees. They have, as one of the grade levels, they usually have 4 teachers per grade to cover, and for the rotation. Then what they do, which for the MCTC, they provide exploratory activities throughout the year. And they told us what they would do. I think it's once a month. Okay, they forgot. All right, that the CTE center the Monroe County Tech Center would come to Peterstown Middle School, and they're there, the different programs are there. And so for a day, they let all of the kids rotate through those areas, and they get to do a project. So, the carpentry class would be there, and the kids, the middle school kids would rotate, I'm not sure if it's 7th and 8th or 6th, 7th and 8th, but they would rotate through the carpentry class, and the carpentry class had planned this activity, and the kids go through it, whether it's making a birdhouse or whatever, and then the business classes. So the kids all rotate through a section, and then they come back and do another activity with them. So it's like part of a CTE program, and then they come and, you know, they go to the middle school at Peterstown and the middle school at Mountain View, and they do an exploratory class with them. It's not every day, but it's like maybe once a month that they get exposed to these entry-level CTE programs. The other thing that's different is all 9th and 10th graders have an entry-level CTE program. So it's the entry level, and they do rotate like through 9 weeks. And it's not by choice, they are exposed to all the different CTE classes. I know that's how it worked when I was at the high school. This school does not operate on a block, it has 60-minute classes. Now, and so this is probably more doable than what we could do. They have their own dedicated art and music teacher. So at Peterstown Middle School, they have a music teacher. They also can participate in marching band. They have a Peterstown Middle School marching band, and all the kids have art. And so they all rotate through that. So to answer your question, Mr. Steele, what we would need to do is we would need to have a dedicated music teacher at each of our 3 schools and a dedicated art teacher. Because right now, our lower grades get the art, or you get gifted art if you're in the upper level. And so that's probably more doable. What we would need to do is just add employees. The problem is we're kind of, you know, like where would we don't really have an art room, and we, you know, don't have a music room. It's on the stage, and it's, you know, they'd be going to the classes and things like that. But that is what we could do. We'd have to add teachers.
Just while we're on that, one thing I'd like to see, I think, you know, we talk about these Mark talks about exploratory all the time. 30 years ago, when I was in Nares High School, was an 8th grader, we rotated through home ec, consumer sciences, business, shop, they had a career exploration class, basically all the CTE programs. And I think Mr. Bowles said they did that at some time before COVID. You know, that's something that I don't know why we're not doing that to expose these kids to it. You know, probably go with career explorations or whatever that 8th grade module is, and I think it'd be something, you know, it would help our CTE programs. It's something that we did 30 years ago and we can do now.
One reason is there's no room in the classes. We don't have no room in these buildings.
I'm talking about 8th grade where there is room.
So to this day. I learned how to make a shirt.
No, I
Back
mean,
in
that's
the day. It might have fell
Yeah.
apart when we washed it.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, I agree that we could probably, you know, that's a conversation that we could do at 8th grade, but I do think that we need to start a little earlier than 8th grade. I think our middle schools need to have some exploratory as well, but definitely, you know, 8th grade, I would like to see that. Peterstown Middle School, also, anything you guys want to add about that?
I will add that we have started exploratory this year at all the elementary schools. Ms. Riley from the Tech Center is came down, and she is with each one of our grade 6 and 7 students once a week. She's gonna do that year long, exposing them to personal finance. Help me out, Jason.
She's doing personal finance, she is doing health and nutrition, they're doing some STEM activities.
And like life skills,
Childcare.
Yeah,
so.
and we are doing that this year, but that's because we had low enrollment at the Tech Center. That's not a permanent thing. She didn't have a second half of her schedule to fill, so you know, I asked Mr. White to send her to the middle schools. That's something that we need to continue, but that may not continue just because of scheduling. You know, we don't have, but yes, that's gonna be, and we did change, they do have exploratories at the middle schools, but as far as the music and the art, we don't really have a music and art teacher, which I would like to see. And also, I think our schools, we don't have a dedicated STEM teacher. We do at Nares High School, but at the middle schools, even though we don't have a dedicated STEM teacher, we do pretty good with STEM. We don't have a STEM lab, but we still do pretty good. I mean, as evidence when we had the, what Ms. Tibbs brought to the county with the Apple lab, Apple Camp, I don't know what we want to call it. I mean, you know, we don't have the opportunities in some of the other divisions, but yet, you know, Cooper Bogus and her friend kind of racked up at the competition against schools who have more opportunities. So I think we do a good job. We do a good job with less, but, you know, I would like to see, you know, our STEM program expanded even down to the lower grades. So I think that our kids are getting a good opportunity in that regard. Then down to the middle school, they participate, it's the Bluegrass Conference, and it's much like what Northside does. It's not anything through the WVSSAC, but they get together as a cohort and they ask, you know, different counties if they want to participate in a Bluegrass Conference, and then they get together and they play each other, and then they have a Bluegrass tournament. They take turns hosting a Bluegrass tournament at the end, so they do have a little bit more organized sports activities than what, you know, our kids, mostly our sports are through rec league, which I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying it's different of how it's handled. So, I mean, the main differences when we visited were the amount of electives middle schools are exposed to and the sports programs and the safe schools entrances of the buildings. Peterstown Middle School, like I said, brand new. Safety is a huge thing, so they had a huge, you know, entrance where you sign in here and then somebody buzzes you in here and then somebody buzzes you in again. So those were the big differences that I saw, unless anybody else wants to add anything.
With respect to the safe schools entrances, I do think we need to be careful to separate that out from a discussion about a middle school. That is, but to me, they're not, one doesn't require the other.
Exactly.
If that's something that you guys are recommended at all our schools that be analyzed, and we need to do that as a separate piece, not as something that confuses. And I'm not saying you're trying to confuse the issue. That's
Right. No, I agree with you.
difference.
I agree with you totally. I mean, that's not something unique to a middle school. That should be every school. You know, we need to explore that. But that's just, you know, where we were. Those schools had that, and we got to see an actual what the state is requiring and what they think is a, you know, a safe schools entrance. I know James Renaud just added one a couple years ago for several $100,000, so that is a push in West Virginia.
Is it essentially basically no way in, no way out? You just kind of get them in a locked vestibule.
You lock, well, didn't we lock, and then they had to show our license.
They bust you in the front door, the first door, second set of doors are locked, and you've got a vestibule there that you're looking at a person and they're saying, can I have you need to scan your license, we need to print off.
Yeah.
Then when they give you your name, and they did all of us, I think at one time, when we all got ours, then they let us all in.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing we have is Macy.
Right.
And I've looked from a constructability challenge for the rest of them. Maybe this is something that we consider in our upgrades. I don't know that we're ever gonna have a chance to really look at it holistically again. But almost every other facility, if you create a dedicated corridor from the entrance to the office, you're shutting off, like at Eastern, for instance, you'd shut off one side of the building from the gymnasium and the cafeteria. We'd have to go all the way back around that loop. Same thing with Nares Elementary. You're blocking off that whole other side, so.
You're almost gonna have to build out externally on the front doors, and that's gonna look monstrous in some places, but.
Or we use up some of the common area interior and
Right.
build in, and that common area is just a little bit smaller. And maybe we retrofit the existing offices into some kind of learning space. I don't know, that would be another discussion.
Well,
I agree with Jason that's a good takeaway, Lisa, but I think my question on the electives, you mentioned music and arts. What other electives are they able to provide that we can't?
Well, I mean, it just, you know, like I said, with Northside, they do share, you know, with the high school, the electives. I mean, I think at middle school, I just wanted to say, like, it would probably be easier when I'll just talk about myself when I was at Macy. It would have been easier for me to develop a schedule if I had a rotation of at least 4 people for my kids to rotate through instead of like always being PE, just PE. It would have been nice if my kids could have rotated through. They had 9 weeks of PE and 9 weeks of this and 9 weeks of that. You know what I'm saying, a rotation. But I couldn't do that because I didn't have a dedicated music teacher. I was sharing, it was Dawn Seacrest coming over to Macy, and it was Jeannie Farmer coming from Narrows and sharing those employees. If I would have had my own music and art teacher, that would have been more like what I was used to in developing a middle school schedule. So I just didn't have a dedicated person, and you're always coordinating with other schools. Like Eastern is always coordinating with Macy. Eastern has to have music, it kind of ties your hands when you're doing a schedule because you're always sharing it with people. And then the other thing about the sports, the way our setup right now is I really don't see how we could do the sports programs like they're doing with the setup that we have now. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn or not. Like, they have a dedicated athletic director, because taking on middle school sports is a huge undertaking. And right now, I just don't know how, that they pay, at Peterson Middle School, they pay one of their employees to be the athletic director. It is almost a full-time job with all the sports that they have. The lady that does it at Northside, it's like that's part of her job, but it's almost like a full-time job. It is a undertaking when you're coordinating. And then when we have 3, then we're coordinating with facilities and things like that. I mean, that's a whole other ball of wax right there.
Are the kids, I know this past year with the drama play, you can correct me if this is true, Mr. Bowles, didn't one of the middle school girls come over and participate in their drama play? Scott Tier, is that true? So is that not something we could offer?
Well, that's a separate extra school.
Is that-
That's after school
Yes.
activity.
Okay.
I mean, if they're. depending on
But it still
what-
gets them involved if they want to
Mhm.
participate in drama, even if it is an after-school activity.
Like a club or something
Right.
like that.
There've been numerous ones over the years.
And I know Giles started their drama, so is that not something that, I mean, at least they would be getting that if it's something that they're interested in, is being able to participate with the drama.
So going to both schools, the biggest takeaway I had, and this is pretty self-evident, thought about staffing. So if we use, for us, we would use our SOQs as the framework, all right, that's our foundation. And that is our math, science, English, history. Everything after that with these electives, and the electives that I listed that Northside had was, they have languages, business, art, PE, family and consumer science, music, and a couple others. Of those, really the only ones we're offering at any of the elementary middle schools are PE. Art ends in the primary grades. Foreign language, we don't get until we get to high school other than going online. So basically what I'm saying is it all depends on what outside of the SOQs we would want to fund to have a person in a position to offer our students this. It's pretty basic, but both schools were very adamant. You can't do it, you can't make these offerings with just a skeleton framework of your teachers. You have to be willing to invest in these other programs for your students.
So regardless of whether you have dedicated middle school or current situation, all for these electives, you're gonna have to add staff.
Yes.
I mean, because I'm looking at Northside's teacher rate, student ratio, and again, I don't know if these are dedicated teachers, but you do the rough number, it's 12-1. And then we're working about 18-1. So that's a significant investment on the staff side.
So for me to wrap a bow around this, and maybe it doesn't happen anytime soon, and I'm just one board member, the next step, this conversation is all about what it takes to maybe offer those additional opportunities. So what I think would be helpful for us in the community would be to see if we added what we needed to at each middle school to get as close to being able to offer this as possible. And whether that's staff, additional STEM, whatever that looks like, that's one option we have to get more robust on providing those opportunities, right? The other one is centralized middle school location where we have whatever we need to do that same thing, and then we compare the pros and cons and the cost of those. If it costs 3 times as much to have a single middle school building, gonna rip administrators and kids out of their existing building to go to that location versus what it takes to invest and do the same thing in the individuals, then that's the information we need as a community to decide which direction we want to go. I mean, is that not the best way to look at it?
What it sounds like here, I think you're looking, we already know, to keep the current teacher ratio we got, if you want to do a separate building, it's gonna cost you $3.5 million. If you add what Northside has, you're looking at probably $10 to $15 million renovation in Harris High School to add the teaching stations necessary for these electives. Regardless, I think you're probably gonna be a wash in staff thing. So we're looking at, are we gonna spend $30 million to do what we've got to do right now? Plus in 5 to 10 years in Mr. Mills's building, spend another $10 to $15 million. And then on top of that, spend $10 to $15 million to have a dedicated middle school with increased transportation costs, and we haven't even talked about, $1 million rebranding. I mean, I think it's, in my mind, the thing we need to be doing is focusing on what we can do within our budgetary constraints, personnel-wise, to put this in, looking at adding science labs at Macy and at Eastern, and turning the computer labs into STEM labs. I think it's the only thing as a community we can afford. Otherwise, we're continuing discussions on something that's going to tear the community, continue to cause division within the community. And it's something that we realistically can't afford. I mean, we can do a middle school, but it's going to be a 22 to 1 middle school or an 18 to 1 middle school and still not add the programs that I think Mr. Mills and Mr. Gotcher and Mr. Bowles would like to see.
I'd expect that response from Mr. Buckland. I mean, it doesn't matter what we say, he's going to come with those numbers. I don't know where he's getting those numbers at, but I would like to see what it would cost, whether we contain what teachers we have to be taught in a middle school, what it would cost. I don't know where he's coming up with these numbers, but 30
We've got a report from ZMM that says it's $3.5 million to add teaching stations. Am I wrong, Dr. Cronin?
But let's come up with what we think we're gonna need, They come up with this ludicrous, STEM lab for $350,000 for one lab. Where'd that come from?
That came from the equipment costs. We said they could do one for about, you could do all 3 elementary schools right now for $250,000 and get a decent thing. We talked about this at a previous work session. I mean, the space constraints for a dedicated middle school, from what I'm seeing, and if we want to offer it, I think that ZMM, am I correct in thinking that ZMN number would be conservative if we had to add numerous elective classes?
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking at a lot more than $3.5 million.
Well, it depends on, I mean, the market right now is up, down. I think that was their best number at the time. You look at that a year from that point, it could be higher, it could be lower. We're seeing equipment costs and everything.
What I'm saying is we're looking at additional square footage teaching station increases. So it's not, whatever that number is for square footage increase, you're increasing the square footage for in addition to have the number of electives.
They did not have any of this information or what we would choose staff to provide to them to revisit that $3.5 million number at the time that they did that evaluation. Is that
I believe
correct?
The more information that ZMM can have, the better the number they can give us.
And this conversation will not, and you're right, Mr. Buckland, we need to focus on what we can do with the money that we have. But this conversation is not gonna stop coming up until we have the information that supports what Mr. Buckland just said, that the one middle school concept is this much money if we agree that 2 gyms is the only way that we can do it with a middle school option, then we need to look at the 2 gym option at one facility and adding a gym at every other elementary school. I guess we wouldn't have to have a gym at the elementary school at that.
I don't think, I mean, we start looking at adding gyms, I mean, we've got, for after-school sports, you've
Well, so
got.
as we are, we don't need more gym, is that right? Middle school principals, even if we added the programs, was the gym space critical to being able to add the additional electives if we had the standalone middle school concept that we have right now? I don't understand how all that interacts. So would we need more gym to add those electives at the current middle schools?
I think fall sports, you kind of got it worked out. I mean, and even basketball, like I know at Nares, Todd would go to the elementary school and practice
Right.
during basketball, and he coaches middle school. So he would have to use the elementary school. It was the only possible way to get all 6 teams. You'd have to do half of them at the elementary school and half of them at the high school. Because both school, they have middle school. So there's no way you can practice 6 teams at one location.
And Mike, don't lose your thought.
Okay.
As far as the gym goes, what happens what happened at Macy at my school is that when you had PE, everybody had PE in the 7th grade, and sometimes there were 65 7th graders having PE at the same time. If you add people on that rotation and they're divided 4 ways, then a 4th of your 7th graders are having PE, a 4th of them are having art, a 4th of them are having music, and a 4th of them are having STEM or something like that, and they rotate through it at that time. So that would be the difference in having 2 gyms, because then you'd have a middle school PE teacher and an elementary school PE teacher, and they would have elementary PE, and it wasn't really a full-blown gym. Like, you'd have a really fancy gym, and then you'd have more like an activity room for your elementary kids. And then that way, everybody's not having, that game that they played, and they're all in there running together, because we do, that's the advantage of having, if you have a pre-K 7 school, of having 2 gyms, so you don't all have PE at the same time. Has it worked for years? It has, it's just not ideal to do that in what I had. And, and that pre-K 8 school at Peterstown told us 2 gyms is a must. You cannot do it with 1 gym and have that many grades. And we do it, but it's not ideal. So sorry.
Well, actually, that's what I was going to mention.
I'm sorry.
No, I can piggyback off that because, I had experience at Macy as well. Essentially, you're running an elementary schedule, a middle school schedule, and you're trying to mesh it, and it impacts your instructional day. That's where I, as a principal, wanted to protect was my instructional time. So, again, Mrs. Mustang alluded to, it was an issue trying to do a 7th grade PE with 65 kids in there. I mean, it was very difficult to do, but it was necessary because you had essentially.
That's a planning period.
It's a planning, well, it's a planning period, but also, having 60, 70 7th graders in one location doing gym is very, very difficult. But it was necessary because you got an elementary schedule and a middle school schedule, and you tried to mesh them. And I think the other thing that impacted the instructional day was having part-time art, part-time music. And I had that same issue at Radford. I mean, I shared an art and a music teacher with another school, and it impacted my instructional day. And I think if you have a dedicated art, dedicated music, I think that's going to free your schedule up to allow for more CTE offerings, wouldn't you say?
Or two PE teachers.
2 PE teachers. I mean, I do think you need I call it an auxiliary gym, not for sports, but just for your schedule. Because there's a big difference between preschool gym and 7th grade gym. And you need some appropriate spaces for that, but.
All of this stuff requires a brand new building. One big old, let's face it, when you sit there
A
and look
brand
at
new
it.
building would be nice.
But when you're sitting here talking about all this stuff, just like Peterstown, it's a brand new facility with high school, middle school, I mean, if you wanna get right down to it. I mean, ideally, would that be great?
Now, I mean, whether the whole board agreed to go down this path or not, the majority of the board, the direction that we chose was to decide what it would take to provide as close as we can a traditional middle school setting at each existing facility. Because let's face it, we're not made of money here. So one of the options is what would it take for us to get as close as we can with the facilities that we have right now? And that doesn't mean trying to cut the corners. Let's see what it would really take. If that's an auxiliary gym at each location, additional staff, a couple of extra learning centers, so be it. That's one option.
Do you think that we're going to ever get funding for an auxiliary? I mean.
Why can't we have the conversation?
We can have the conversation.
We're not.
Still,
Every time I try to set the stage to try to get some closure on this from factual data, you start throwing out numbers that are hypothetical to some extent, and you're an attorney, not an architect. And I'm not throwing numbers out, and I'm an engineer. So why can't we let people do their job?
Numbers from the $30 million is money we've got committed. The $3.5 million.
It's the only number that we have that you've thrown out. That's the only number we have.
And we know we're gonna spend $10 million on a roof and HVAC at Eastern in the next, at least $10 million in the next, 10 years. We're gonna have to. But what I'm saying is, we start talking auxiliary gyms and that's pie in the sky. We're wasting our time, we're wasting the community's time, we're wasting our staff's time. Because the board of supervisors is never gonna fund that.
Okay, one board members voice their opinion, others?
We've got an auxiliary gym at the elementary school. And the middle school would be at Nares High School if we choose that route. So we wouldn't need another gym. But that's gonna be a battle.
We gonna do another study for this? I mean,
No,
I get
we're
so
not.
tired, we beat the same thing over and over.
We're not gonna do another
and over.
study. We're simply asking for
So
revised
tired of this.
information on what staff has brought back to us, which is new information that we didn't have. Every meeting that we've had that's gotten contentious, everybody, as they should, on the western side has said, what are we gonna get with the middle school? What additional offerings? Now we find out that we could actually provide more electives, and they're still trying to shut it down.
I think it's
I'm
the
trying to
whole,
shut it down.
I think
I'm
it's the
saying-
whole county, Stevie, it wants to know what you.
But we're not
Quit just
experts
saying
in
the western
facilities and
end.
pricing. I don't understand.
How, we're going to have to
Shouldn't be just
add-
the western end, it should be everybody if you wanna get
We're gonna
something.
face pressures, we're looking at adding, what? Either way we go, we're looking at adding 10 teachers.
Are we gonna do this like in a back and forth, Dr.
No,
Arbogast? We're just gonna
I'm just
decide how
trying
many
to, I'm
teachers?
trying to illustrate the fact that.
It's not
if we
fair
do
to
this-
you to do that, in my opinion. It's not fair to do that to them in this
Why do you
public
always go
setting.
back on the western end? It's gonna affect the whole county.
That's the only people that have come to these meetings, Melissa. I haven't heard anybody on the eastern end say, let's not look at a middle school option.
But you're sitting there saying it's all the western end, it ought to be the whole county that's looking at the middle school thing.
Well, then I have not received one email asking them about it.
Okay.
So that's
then
why
get
I
'em
said
here.
that.
Okay. What the Board of Supervisors has said to me is they need a cost of how we operate now. And they want a cost of how much it's gonna operate if we do make Nares High School, middle school. That, they need that. That's the numbers they're looking for. They've told me that personally. So that's what we need to give them. They should have the numbers that we operate on now because that's what we're doing now. All we need is the numbers if we convert Nares High School into a middle school and give that to them. We're just sitting there beating a dead horse, sitting there arguing. But we have two elementary schools, this is my opinion, like I'm one board member. We have two elementary schools that are busting at the seams. We need to do something to help these two elementary schools. We got 5 schools in this county. 2 of them are busting at the seams. They do not have any space for anything. They have almost as many kids as Giles High School does. We need to help these 2 elementary schools. Whether that's a middle school or whatever, but we need to help them out. That way if we help these kids out and possibly make a middle school, then you're dropping your enrollment from 2 middle schools down from almost 500 to a little over 300. Am I correct? So if you teach these kids basics at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, reading, writing, and arithmetic, then when they get to middle school or high school, they're not gonna have so much trouble. But right now, we're leaving our kids out because the 2 elementary schools are overcrowded. And I'm not saying no more. We need to go on with something else because we're just beating a dead horse.
And we need to find out what teachers can teach at a middle school. You know, is what I'm thinking, man. You know, you think about rehiring. We just, like he said, like Philip said, the cost and what teachers would need to go to that building. So you wouldn't have to rehire them, they're already hired, so. And what we're going to, you know, offer there, that's what we need to look at.
But what are we saying, when we say, what model we're using? We got Peterstown Elementary, we're using the north side model. Is that what we want, the full gamut? And then even then, we've got the issue that we can't have kids going across, we're not gonna get that because we're not gonna have kids going across campus. There is no other school to go across campus on. But, I mean, is that what you wanna look at?
From the presentation that Lisa gave, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, your expert opinion and all of your experience is that the Peterstown model is probably more attainable for us in our condition than the north side.
In the current, if you're not talking about building anything or changing or adding anything, then I think that's the closest thing that, you know, you could probably do. And I'm not an expert in this. I just want, you know, we went and looked at these schools to see what do you offer that we don't? And how can we help our kids to have the same offerings?
Right.
I did not go looking at, okay, we want to be just like you, we want it to be 6-8, we want it to be pre-K-8. I will tell you, Peterstown Middle School teachers told me they do not like the pre-K-8 concept. They liked it better when they were housed together because they were used to being separate with their middle schools. Now they're pre-K-8. They don't like that concept because it just has created a lot of tension among staff. They weren't used to that. Northside, they were totally different because their kids could walk across campus and use the high school. Our kids can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't anything that would be exactly like what we have. But what I would have loved to have had as an administrator at Macy, I would have loved to have had 2 PE teachers. I would have loved to have had my own music teacher, and I would have loved to have had my own art teacher. And I would have loved for my kids to have more STEM. Now, Paula and I have worked very hard on trying to help the STEM programs in the county, and I think we've done a pretty good job with that. But unless we have more employees, you have to have, you know, you need more employees at our current locations to separate our PE, our elementary, and our middle school. But you have one gym, so you're still gonna have the same amount of kids in the gym. See what I'm saying? Like, even if you add another PE teacher, then you're gonna have elementary PE and middle school PE in the gym at the same time.
I agree with Lisa. I
I mean,
needed 2 PE teachers, dedicated music, dedicated art, and a STEM teacher. And all those, I know it impacts your instructional day. And to have those would be a huge improvement. The other thing too, I think before you go down any road, you need to look at what schedule are you gonna run? How are you going to address if you keep it all in the 3 separate buildings, how are you going to still have a middle school schedule and an elementary school? That was one of the issues. Did you not have that same issue? Yeah, that's one of the issues we had. You know, what electives would you want to offer? I think before we can nail down cost, we need to know what we could potentially offer that's going to satisfy the requirements. of our students. And I don't think we pick one model over another. I think we need to look at, see what we have and what we can offer that's going to benefit our students, and then make a schedule or have a good idea of some kind of schedule that we can work around to see what spaces we would need or not need and what renovations we would do or not do. Until you kind of get a good idea of that, you're just kind of, in my opinion, that's my opinion, you're just going to keep coming up with random costs.
I think that's task number 2 then. You had task 1, you looked at it. Task 2, if we're going down this road, is, what's the best with what we've got and what's the best with a middle school. I mean, you're gonna look, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it the best. And if that's what you're looking at. So I think that's what it is with each option. You keep 3 separate buildings and you figure out what that is, come back to us, and then we'll say, hey, go look at costs now.
Well, I think you have information on a dedicated middle school, 2 high schools, 3 elementary. I think you also have information on what it's going, preliminary information from ZMM or what it's going to cost to keep some of these at all 3 buildings, 2 high schools. I just think you need to, they might disagree, I just think you need to have a pretty good idea of what you want to offer.
That's what I'm saying.
And
You
then
guys,
work toward it.
you got, the next step, sounds like to me then, is if we're saying, hey, get us some costs and shooting in the dark. What the next step would be is, okay, what if you had a dedicated building, this is what we would try to offer. This is what we want to try to do with the three buildings we've got to improve what we've got.
I do believe you need a separate gym for, you would need some type of auxiliary gym, whether it be a smaller gym for the smaller grades. In order to make that schedule work, I think you need something. I don't know where you would put it or how you would do it, but I believe that's what you would need, or come up with some kind of creative schedule.
Well, I think that's the next task, because I don't think, what you're telling us is until you've got that direction, you can't come up with costs.
I think it's gonna give a better cost if we have a good idea.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the next thing would be you and the current administrators decide which electives. I know Jason peeled off the ones that he saw that we couldn't provide now. Maybe it's not that full list, but what list do we think we would want to provide in our middle school model? And is that what you need to?
Well, I think there's 3 things you look at. I think what's the 3 things you look at. What is the maximum that we can add given our current, limitations? What can we do, whether it's adding teachers or what have you, not touching the buildings other than roofs and HVAC, what we've already got planned. Number 2, if you kept 3 buildings, what you would want to, ideally what you want to do and what that costs, because you're talking about the gym.
10.
And then
About
finally,
jobs.
if you had, a dedicated building.
Yeah. I tried to say that earlier, but clearly.
Like I said, I think this is an exercise that will continue to divide the community. I've made my point, and it is what it is.
These administrators gonna come from the schools, we put them in to the school.
My point is to the contrary. When the community figures out that the one building concept to provide what we want to do additionally is not financially feasible, then we get to focus our efforts on other things. Until that time, we just keep talking about how it's gonna rip things apart, and to me, that's the stop point every time we have these hard conversations. When we just flat out can't afford to do something that would be awesome for our kids, then we back to doing everything we can as we always have with what we've got. And and I think I should speak for this whole board in saying that we are extremely pleased at what each of our elementary schools have been doing and are doing right now.
Right.
This is in no way a conversation that's saying they're not doing awesome right now.
I think our K
Right now.
through, I mean, and I see what you're saying, Philip, but I don't think it means that Nares and Macy's K through 3 are not doing a great job because their buildings.
I didn't say that.
I'm,
I didn't say that.
And I
but I'm
still,
just saying though, you said that we're overcrowded, so they're not.
We are.
Kids aren't getting the best.
well,
They're not.
and if we're
They haven't gotten the
overcrowded,
best since COVID happened.
I'm sorry, but if we're overcrowded too, we've not looked at this, and your response to the Board of Supervisors when this was asked by them was, we've got a policy that allows people free transfer. If we've got a capacity issue at 2 schools, then we need to look at shifting districts to elementary schools, what that would cost and what could be alleviated. I mean, you know, if that's a concern, then we need to look at that and see if that can be worked, because that's what I get asked all the time. Why don't you look at, you know, you got 2 schools busting at the seams, why don't you look at, I mean, I've talked to Stevie about this before, why the kids from on 730 go to Mason?
Well, the first thing I'd do before that is stop taking transfers to other places. That'd be the first thing.
Today.
That's those are numbers as of yesterday. Give it to me yesterday afternoon.
I will jump in, I'm sorry, and I will tell you that our enrollment is up to about 468. We've grown about 40 students in the last year or so, too. So
For what?
468. And our classrooms are 20, 17, 18 also. That information.
By what?
Are you in the 20, 17, 18 average classroom size, Chris?
Probably, somewhere in there.
Okay. So Lisa, Terry, and Mike, are you guys, based on what Jason said, do you got an idea of what we're asking?
Not really, I don't.
All right, so.
Another job for you.
I have not been clear for the last,
All right, so,
to be honest.
given our current limitations with respect to space and teaching and what have you, let's just say you don't add an auxiliary gym, you're not adding a bunch of square footage to any of the elementary schools. Let's just say we're leaving the building as is, except for maintenance that we've already discussed.
Okay.
What can you do? In staff is not a limitation. This is what you'd recommend that we do, that we can do, adding in this number of staff people here, there, sharing amongst buildings, whatever it is.
Okay.
To improve the middle school experience of our elementary middle kids. So that's one. That's what's feasible without doing anything with dirt.
Okay.
2 would be, you know, this is what we'd like to have within reason. I mean, you know, I'm not saying budget's not a concern, because budget is, but hey, yeah, we really need an auxiliary gym, and you know, this or that, whatever it is that's option 2. And then option 3 is, okay, if we're going to do a middle school, we're going to do a first class middle school, you know, assuming that you'd use Nares High School, you know, this is what we need there to be able to do it.
Maybe a schedule, but what's your all's opinion on the best schedule for that middle school, in your all's opinion? You know, you all would know. I would like to see.
I mean, this is not I think some of us have discussed it, and this is not an advertisement for one schedule or the other.
Right.
But both middle schools and high school be on the same
schedule.
I don't care which one it is. I've been a principal under both. I'm
But it needs to
not
be
advocating for one or the other, but
Right.
if we had it on the same,
schedule.
it would make more sense in our county.
Right, I agree.
And that's just my opinion. I'll just say my opinion on that. I'm not gonna speak for anybody else on that.
It has, there's so many
It's a fight for
conflicts.
another day.
Yeah, that's another
That's a
argument.
fight for another day.
But out of this evaluation, if at least some recommendation that a single schedule would be helpful for whatever reason, would at least give us something to start that conversation on another day. So if somebody would say, why do we care? Why are we trying to do one schedule? Then at least we have something to say. When we looked at the middle school situation, it was made it clear to us that a single schedule would have some benefit.
I don't think that anybody would have too much of an argument of having a single schedule. The argument's going to be which schedule.
Right.
Right.
It's not, I think everybody kind of understands that if we were on the same schedule, it would make a little bit more sense. We've said that for a long time, but it would be the argument of which one. Not if we should, just which schedule.
And I guess a big thing would be, and this would be, I guess probably one of the most consuming things is the teachers in the middle school. What teachers, how many teachers and where, and if more would need to be added, transfer, that's something that it's gonna take,
Teachers and if you have one middle school, the teachers and transportation will be the huge issue, yes.
well, the teachers having to be transferred,
Yeah.
right, I've been approached many times and hey, I don't wanna go, but that, we need those answers of,
All right, questions back to us about what you do or do not have to move forward with that activity. We've tried to talk at you for a long, but you guys tell us what you think you might need clarification on.
I mean, I'll just say the heavy in the room is, it's easier knowing what your direction is. And when we don't have a real clear cut, and I know why we don't, but we're doing well, if we do this, then it needs to be this, and if we do that, then it needs to be that, or maybe here's this option, and then we need to do that. So I think it's very hard, and I know it's been difficult on Dr. Arbogast coming up with scenarios, until we decide what direction we want to go in a county. Like, I think that, once we know what the direction is, then we can fix it. But we're always doing, it could be this, or maybe that. And then we're coming up with all these different scenarios. And I'm sorry, Dr. Arbogast, talking out of turn. Sorry about that. But that is our big issue here, is always going on, well, it could be this, or maybe that. And we always have 3 options that we're always having to do triple duty. But once you decide on the direction that you want this county to go on, then I think that we can work it out. We just need to know where you're going.
And I'm not gonna be able to make that decision until what Jason rolled out is laid out in front of me, because I'm not willing to tear down 3 elementary schools.
No, I understand, yeah,
Until I know that is gonna provide significant
right.
and long-term better life for the kids in the community.
Yeah.
So if I'm not convinced that is gonna create a significant improvement, and there is a better way to do it as we are, I can't make that decision yet. So I know everybody keeps saying how much more you're gonna study it. Well, I'm not gonna make a decision based on emotion. I'm not doing that. So the rest of the board members can speak for themselves, but I need to know what Jason laid out. I need to know if we can't afford or put any additional money into the facilities that we have as they are, and doing it another way is too expensive, then we're gonna keep hammering very effectively like we are right now. But when somebody comes to me that voted for me and says, why can't we do this? I'm gonna say facts. This is why, and this is why. That's where I am, and that's why you all have been asked to do what you've been asked to do. So for too long, we have been making decisions based on emotion and just hoping that we are doing the right thing. That's not how I work, so
Well, and I think, you can make that decision and then everybody ends up, if you go that route, say you use narrative as a middle school, it's great in the hypothetical, and I think that's probably why you're not hearing as much from your end, because it's out there, it's a hypothetical. But once you guys, I think to a certain point, you're gonna have to look at bus routes, you're gonna have to look at that. So when, some parents looking at putting their kid in the bus at 6:30 in the morning, whereas now they're getting on at 7:15. That's a direct, people got skin in the game at that point, and I don't think, you know, I hear about it on my end because they've got skin in the game right now. But until you can consider an option when people have skin in the game, and do you understand these other additional costs outside of just brick and mortar, then we can't make an effective decision.
No, and I think the skin in the game on my end is when we find out that whatever the cost is for a single middle school plus their kid getting on the bus at 6:30 in the morning versus spending a third of that as we are currently, whatever that ends up being, I think there's a very good chance that there's some energy behind leaving things the way they are if there's a way for us to give that additional instruction in our current setup. And right now, I can't tell them what that means or what it's gonna cost. And I'm not looking for another 6-month study from ZMM cranking out details to the nines when they don't have enough data to give us details to the nines. And Randy's gonna understand what that means. We're in a funnel evaluation. I don't wanna go all the way to some kind of super high-powered evaluation when something that we find out at this level kills one of the options.
And I think what we're trying to say, what I'm saying here is you come up with these three kind of frameworks of what this is gonna look like, the three different ones. Bring it to us, we say, okay, this was what we're thinking of before we engage ZMM to look at anything in addition, because otherwise I think we're potentially wasting money with ZMM on something we may not, the board may not like.
Absolutely. So if for instance, if we decide that an auxiliary sub-facility option is something that we're really, really interested in, then at that point, that's when they use something other than just per square foot to maybe look at it a little closer. We don't need them to go out and site a location. We don't need them to do earthwork calculations. That's not the level that I'm talking about. This is conceptual, get us in a room, and when we get that next bit of information, we may decide, yeah, this one's out. We're not gonna spend any more time talking about it. We shut that door behind us and we move on to pros and cons of the other ones. Is everybody, you're gonna get what you talked about, Philip, when we do that, because they're gonna be looking at the one building concept.
I'm not the one that asked for it, the board of supervisors did.
Okay. Ms. Mark, this has been kind of your champion. Are you okay with these three things we're looking at?
Yep.
Okay.
Like I said, I think it's an exercise in futility, but go right ahead.
And I appreciate your willingness to engage on a topic that is not something you think we should be spending a lot of time on, but you gave us good input and.
No, like I said, I'll say it all along. There will, one day, it will make sense because we will be able to we will have to close the building. And then at that point, that's when it makes sense, when you can either close a building or build a new building up at Giles High School, it's gonna make sense, but that day is not today.
Ms. Gwynn? You ready to move to the next topic?
Yes, I am. It's the same thing,
Okay,
6 years now.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion? I know Mr. Bowles is here for, I don't even know if it's on the agenda, but we were gonna talk about the baseball field. And
That's under the facility update on facility item.
do you want us to try to accelerate that conversation, Brian?
Probably need to, them boys gotta get those right.
Yeah, so there's,
Possible.
can we have that conversation now?
Whenever y'all ready.
Okay. Dr. Arvias, Dr. Brown?
We provided you all information on the request for the baseball field.
The principals wanted to know if we were finished talking about the middle school thing, so they could.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No, thanks for the time and info.
We shared information with you, on the request for Nares High School's, baseball field. We discussed this last year in October. Here recently again was, Nares High School approached us to have this done. The cost is $7,900 to have the work done, by Alvin Landscaping. We've shared with you that, there's gonna be some dirt that's gonna be moved. If over 10,000 square feet of dirt is going to be moved, we would have to have an ENS control, plan done. If, we anticipate that it is going to be 10,000 square feet, it would make sense to have that done. It would cost an additional $2,000 and would probably take about 4 weeks to complete, based on what we were told by our architect when we had a conversation with him. So, looking at how much dirt, I mean, it's close now how much dirt they're gonna move. I've not been told exactly how much is gonna be moved, but it's close to 10,000 square feet. So they've been told they need to keep it under 10,000 square feet. They need to keep it 9,900, whatever.
How much dirt is this?
And the other thing is that we have not, to my knowledge yet, unless, Mr. Bowles or Mr. Helby have approached the landowner where the dirt will like to be placed, where they would like to have the dirt placed. I received a simple agreement yesterday from council, just saying, well, we're gonna be the one responsible for moving the dirt. It's gonna be seeded, et cetera. But we have not, nobody here that has approached him. I don't know if Mr. Bowles or if anybody approached the landowner.
I have not talked to the landowner.
Okay.
Mr. Helby, I didn't go out with Mr. Brown, Mr. Helby, and the gentleman doing the business the last time, but when all that came up, so I was told it was being addressed, but I have not personally spoken to the landowner.
So we would need to take care of that also before anything, any dirt would be moved onto that spot.
And I'd also like to add the 10,000 square feet or the 9,999 square feet counts the dirt we're putting on the homeowners. If it gives us permission, that's part of that 10,000 square feet, as per my conversation with the county. Which I went on Giles GIS and did a little calculation, and it's not much dirt there. It's not 10,000 square foot, when you add it in there is not that much. And I calculated roughly, to the best of my ability, using the GIS tool, I came up with like 9,000, and it was probably 2,000 on the other homeowners, and that was purely an estimate, and then probably around 7,500, 8,000 on the baseball field, and that wasn't much dirt. Plus, if we do go over 10,000, we also have to get the original set of patrol, and we have to apply for a permit as well.
Yeah.
So my direction was, we needed to wait till we got permission or a permission slip from paperwork from council. Make sure we need, to know what direction we need to go with everything with the county. I also talked with the town of Nares manager. He was fine with everything. He didn't require anything. Talked with Brian Reed. That's the person that does the erosion and sediment control in Giles. He let me know what we needed to do. So.
Did they reserve, do they do that, do they locally administer?
Sir?
Do they locally administer their DEQ, ENS?
I don't want to say yes and no, but from the gist of the conversation, I think that sounded like that.
I think it does.
I think they do.
The reason that matters is Brian has total control over all those decisions, as opposed to having some kind of a go-to person that coordinates with DEQ. So it's much better if it's locally administered.
I learned this morning that we had begun moving dirt. I was unaware that we were moving dirt. I think our instruction was wait till we get all our I's dotted and T's crossed. So I don't even know if we have silt fence up. I'm hoping and praying we're not over 10,000 square foot of disturbed area at this point.
Nope, they only got one swath, 2 swaths.
Yeah, obviously there was some miscommunication somewhere. Luckily, Mr. Steele and I happened to walk out there yesterday when it was started, and it was not just a smart.
So what I looked at with Brian and Chris is there's clearly a challenging outfield situation. I played on that outfield.
Played on that outfield, it was like that.
I mean, center field is awesome because you're running downhill. It's like running from center field to the sideline or the center to the sideline of Giles. If you're running in towards the infield, you're going to be able to get there pretty quickly. But when we're going to have the opportunity to host region, districts, and all that kind of thing, I think Chris and Brian, Chris more than him, said that other teams did have some complaints from time to time, and then it wasn't perfect. So there's no doubt that there needs to be some work done on that field. From somebody who knows sports, it's definitely not ideal. I think to get the best bang for the buck, for the money, and I will acknowledge, this kind of being my business too, that the other quotes we got, which were probably more in line, were in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. So whatever is gonna get done for $7,900 is a smoking deal that we won't get again.
These are 2 guys that are donating about $30,000 worth of work to the school system.
And so I think there's no way we turn that down. However, I wanna make sure we get the best bang for those dollars. And I think spreading it out in a big swath on another property is not the way to do that. So what I talked Brian and Chris about down the left field side, and Brian, you shoot this down at any time if you want to. Down the left field line, there's already a little bit of a berm started where they're putting some spoils from cleaning the field and all that kind of thing. If we kept it isolated in a tall, skinny berm right down that edge that kind of separated the baseball property from that other property, seeded it, and kept that as minimal as possible from a square foot standpoint, then that would maximize how much you could disturb in the center and left field.
If you hold it to somebody's farmland, it would take care of all that, wouldn't it?
Now, the receiving location counts against us no matter what.
No, it's agriculturally exempt.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, yeah, that may be the case.
I'm not saying me, I'm saying some farmer if they want some field dirt.
Now, I will say, the other option that Mr. Reed gave me is that we could split it up. At this time, I don't know that it's a viable option, because he's like, well, you can disturb 9,999 square foot at this point, seed it,
Yeah.
put straw on it, start vegetation, and then start another 10,000.
Well, and here's the deal, they're gonna hydro seed this thing twice. $7,900 probably is not gonna cover the hydro seed. So, I mean, we need to get it done because these guys, 11 months ago, we tried to do it and there was the issue, and for whatever reason, we didn't work those issues out between now and then. But we said, this is, and these guys are first-class contractors. I mean, they've done work for NC DOT and everything.
We're having the same issue as had last year's time. It's,
Well,
we
and
should have started this conversation.
they've got that dozer rented tomorrow.
My thoughts are, we need to do something. I think I shared my thoughts with you, Mr. Steele. We need to do something. I'm just worried about the particulars. I think it's,
As long as we stay under 10,000
as
square
long as we
feet,
stay
we're
under 10,000 square feet, we're good.
okay.
Well, and Mr. Helvey's the driving force behind this. I mean, he's the one that wanted it done. He's taken the initiative to do it. I think he also recognizes the risk of, what it is. I think he's fully accepted that. I think he's the one that's going to be more than any of us dealing with that come spring.
again, my biggest concern is the disturbance of soil, the square foot. I have no problem with the project, it needs to be done. I think Calvin's given us a smoking deal, I agree with Mr. Steele. It boils down to regulations and rules and laws, and I can't wave a magic wand and make that go away. We know what we gotta work within and what we have to do, and if that's what we can do, we can do it.
Well, I mean, I think before we discuss it at the board level, you were gonna let it go ahead if we didn't have any issue with it. So if that's still the recommendation, I think we'll go ahead.
Well, I mean, if we stay within 10,000 square feet, yeah.
It's under 10,000 square feet, I don't think there's an issue.
There's no
If
issue.
it's over 10,000 square feet, that's the problem.
That's what has me concerned is.
I don't.
And I agree with you, Mr. Buckland. If you can take the dirt off site, that increases your, even if you took it and stockpiled it somewhere for the town of Nares. Somewhere, anywhere. I mean, I'll pay the haul fee and they can take it to 1955 Wintergreen Drive, so.
Sold.
I think it's gotta be an exempt property though. We'll make sure that Brian Reed,
I mean, I think we maximize it just by figure out if they can do it agricultural, if it's out, figure out if you take it out of the county, if it's agriculture, I think if you bring it in the county, that's under his
Yeah, in the
bailiwick.
county, well, it's under his bailiwick, if it's outside, I wouldn't do that.
Because it's 10,000 here and 10,000 in, gotcha. Right.
so I mean, if the equipment's sitting right there and we're on a timeline, what's the next step? We got this letter that the property owner can sign.
Yeah,
we'd have
to track the property owner down and have a conversation with them.
What the biggest thing is, they got the dozers there, they need to do the grading, they can load this dirt, haul it on the skid steer, what they actually take off, so that's the big issues, they got a time crunch to get it cut down.
Well, one of the things they need to do is strip the topsoil, because they don't need that back. And then, I mean, they need to stay under 10,000. That has to be discussed. And then I can call Brian Reed and say, okay, if we haul this off-site, now, I don't think Alvin was banking on hauling this off-site.
I'll do it for,
I'm sorry, what, they'll
they'll do it for all, I mean.
They'll do it for a hauling project.
Who owns that property, Jason? Talk about.
I can call Mr. Reed and see where we're at with the, if we take it off-site, if we take it, somebody stockpiles it, whatever, if he's okay with that, if we can, do the 10,000 square feet, so.
To me, all you need from us is, one, if you can work out with Brian Reed to send it somewhere to maximize how much we can take off the baseball field, then that's okay. If we decide to get the property owner to sign it and it goes on that property, then we just have to take that away from what we can disturb on the baseball field, and then that's it. I mean, I don't think we have anybody got any other questions about those options?
Is the 9,000 square feet gonna get you what you need?
No, not to make it
But
perfect.
didn't you say you could do 9,000 and seed it and then do another 9? Why don't we do that?
No, you have to establish vegetation. So you
That hydro seed's green.
you're preaching to the choir. I think we have to see some type of grass. I think you would need to see, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jill, you need to see some type of start of vegetation.
The way it's written is very ambiguous because that's what regulatory agencies do. If Brian Reed believes that hydro seeding is considered stabilized and has started that process, he has a little bit of gray that he could grant us some.
Yeah.
So that would be up to him if he feels like that. I mean, when I was out there with Brian and Chris, I'm going where Philip is. I have from the beginning detested us doing stuff halfway and kind of pecking at something. And we got somebody out there, even if they would double that number to do the field right, then I hate to hit this thing on just a leg and then.
Here's the problem, the ground's already started, we need to get this, what we're doing done, because we've got to get that seeded back. And if it's gonna take 4 weeks to get, you're not gonna do it this year.
Yeah,
So-
it's not, I agree
The
with you.
easiest option is to have it removed and moved off-site. So we need to find out what the cost is to have it transported off-site,
And we gotta have some place to take it to.
someplace to take it to. If it's agricultural, then that's, I'm not saying I'm not saying it, just go back to your point, agricultural, whatever, and that's exempt, and then that just means more of they can start.
Yeah.
Well, I also need to talk to Mr. Reed, and I'm hoping I can get a hold of him here soon. If hydro seeding counts as stabilization for vegetarian.
Right.
Because, I mean, if he, maybe we'll try to ask for some leeway. I think, unless you disagree, Mr. Steele, I think 20,000 or 19,999 square feet would give us a pretty decent field out there.
It would be a lot better than what we're getting ready to do, but I think Chris and Brian recognize that anything is better than what they have now, even if we take a cut at it now and maybe next year we can we can do another one.
I think they're definitely can improve it, and I appreciate Alan's willingness to work with us and give us a good deal and everything. I think we got the ball rolling. We just need to make sure we stay within the parameters of which we have to, because I don't really want
No, I mean, let's
to deal with DEQ.
let's just maximize that $7,100 the best we can without getting into a DEQ issue.
Yeah.
And then if that's successful and we seed it and we get this process down, then maybe earlier next year we can take another cut and maybe they want to give us another smoking price.
Smoking hot deal.
We can cut some more down. And I talked to them about the county and they said, yeah, Jesse's got more dirt sitting than he can get rid of now, so they're not really wanting to take any more right now either, so.
He actually offered to bring some down.
You're right, yeah.
He actually offered to bring some
Yeah.
Thompson down.
All right, I think you guys have direction
Yes, sir.
on that. Board okay with all that?
So what do you hear from Mr. Brown? Okay, thank you.
All right, back to the top. I wanted to present the board some information that I had gotten directly from the workforce folks. Mr. Williams had approached me a couple of weeks ago to tell me that there was a lot of money available through these programs. And so I reached out to Beth Carrico, who is the director of this, and she's been trying to get some energy going behind this program, and she explained to me what that program has changed to, and it's much different than it was some years ago. So there's 13 counties that have access to about $712,000. So spread evenly among each county, that's about $54,000 per county. The previous workforce program allowed them to spend 75% of that money on students that were actually enrolled in some kind of instructional program. The other 25 could be for adults or students that weren't enrolled. Well, it's flipped now so that they can't spend but 25% of that money on students that are actually enrolled in any instructional program, which would be high school, middle school, college, so on and so forth. So she said their hands have really been tied on spending any kind of money on the kids while they're with us. But what she did say she wanted to try, and they're trying to fund a position that is full-time in Giles County. And so they would have somebody in, and I think their existing location's down at Nares, but they're trying to find a spot in the Harrisburg area. So that person would actually be on site for our counselors or whoever else, the community, that could actually walk in that building and get help. But what her and I talked about was, since she can only spend 25% of that money and energy on her kids in the building, she said that she would like to try to get involved earlier, either with our counselors or when we start talking to the kids about the tech center, and set up a program that shows which kids either have a solid track into tech school, they're gonna get a trade, they know that's where they wanna go. The group of kids that know they're gonna go to college, they're in gov school, that's another bucket of kids. So what do we do with the kids that don't know what they want to do? They're not sure what they like doing. They don't know if they're going to have the support at home to decide what they're going to do. She wants to get with us and engage that group early on, just talking to them, kind of counseling what they think they like to do. And then as soon as they walk off the graduation stage, the second they graduate from us, she can plug that 75% money into doing something for them. And that, the list of that stuff that she can do for them, they can, so they call it, if you don't know what you're doing, they can do training support. They can provide paid internships and on-the-job training. They can do career coaching and help with job placing. They can do all kinds of things for those kids once they've graduated from our system. And so she's really excited about trying to get a list of those kids so that instead of waiting until they graduate and then talking to them and saying, how can we help you? We've caught them way before they walk off the stage, and they already know what that program provides, what kind of position that workforce could maybe place them into. And so she's excited about getting with Ms. Vaden and other counselors to try to develop what that interaction looks like between workforce and our existing school system. So she did say she was frustrated that the previous setup let them spend 75% of their money while our kids were in our system, but she said that's flipped 180. And so now they're, for whatever reason, that program has decided to focus on graduates and adults and people in the community that are already in those situations. And she said that's challenging, but she thinks there's a way that she can interact with our staff to develop a group that she knows she can help when they do graduate. So that's what I found out. She's willing to come and talk to each of our schools and brainstorm on how she can get some things started. And I didn't give her any guidance to reach out to you or your staff yet, Dr. Arbogast, but if you are interested in having her come first to you and talk about what that communication would look like at each school, how do you want to?
She could, yeah, it'd be good for her to reach out, and she can sit down with myself and Ms. Mustang, we can have a conversation. I also made a note of, and I talked to Ms. Mustang about this, but she could invite her to the counselor meeting, first counselor meeting that they have, to kind of speak with the counselors to see here's what's available, what we would like to do, and how they can be involved.
And she did send me, they're currently looking to fill that position, and that the salary is actually very competitive, and it would be nice if somebody locally would be interested in that position. She just says they haven't got any applications at all. So she forwarded that resume to Chris. I think he's gonna try to circulate it. I don't know how we can help, maybe try to help find that right person, but.
What's her name?
Beth Carico is her name. And she works out of the Abington People Incorporated office. But it's a very competitive salary they're offering, and essentially would be the liaison to that program in our community in an office space. So not just for the students, but if an adult was displaced from their job and they wanted some help from that workforce development, they could walk into that office space and say, I need training. Or if, as I said, a kid walks off from graduating from Giles and Ayers and they haven't been introduced to that program, they're like, I don't know what to do. They can walk in that office, they can provide on-job training, they can get them into a couple of different businesses and let them kind of see if they like the business before they get started. So it's It's a pretty good program.
Well, the counselors will have a great detail on, the students who just graduated, history and,
Yep.
everything about whoever, and, so that's a great, information guide right there.
It's not a lot of money, again, even a county as a whole, it's not a lot of money, but I think the fact that they could probably pull from the other communities if they're not taking advantage of it, and if we really plug in and show some real results, I think year in and year out, that program can only get better.
And Mr. Williams, don't they have additional resources for like, if we're trying to get kids placed or looking for jobs?
Is that what you said?
Law programs, law partners. I had callers from y'all today. I'll go back and speak today, Mr. Steele.
Now, we don't do, I think Amanda was pretty clear, we don't do presentations during.
You actually punched in the phone to me today. I told you I want to come and talk to the board about this.
And you can come during the board meeting,
You told me to come today.
right, and you can listen to what I presented, and,
I'm sorry, I thought he was invited today, but.
no, he was, and if there's clarifications, I think that's the board's prerogative, but we don't do full presentations with.
Matter of fact, board, I was gonna tell you, I've been trying to talk to y'all for over 2 months. I left word here at the office. I'd like to talk to y'all about this, never was called back. Never was contacted back.
And that's actually not true. You were offered to meet with me and Mr. Buckland before this meeting, and that was not something that you were
That was
interested in.
today, I said the whole board, I want to talk to the whole board.
Well, we operate,
Why don't you want me to talk, Mr. Steele? Why don't you want me to talk to them?
because we don't,
First of all,
once
you
we
did half your stuff wrong. You went from,
this was directly from Beth Carrico.
Beth Carrico's not the executive director. She just runs the offices out the field.
Okay.
Marty Holliday in Radford is our executive director. She's actually one over all of it. She's got 4 or 5 staff people in her office, 2 works on this. Beth does the field work, the field office. She just took over.
Okay.
Used to be, can I speak today? If I can't tell my friend I can come back, I will.
I've been directed by our staff that if we start letting anybody from the community present in our work sessions, then everybody in the community will want to do that, Jay. We're not saying we don't want to hear from you.
Mr. Steele. I've been on the workforce board 12 years representing Giles County. We've made efforts to try to get in about some of this stuff, never have been called back. And I'm not representing myself, my community, I'm representing the workforce. You represent Mount Rogers Workforce Board. I'm a board member, actually, vice chairman of that board, been the chairman before.
And Mr. Buckland and I, or other staff, would love to hear from you and talk about it for hours if you want to. And then we can.
I got 15 minutes, I can tell you all of it. You told a lot of stuff, it's not right. The money, we've got $1 million this year to spend on youth programs. It has been cut back, but a lot of communities are not using it. Last year, it was $700,000 that money left over wasn't even used. There's a good bit of money there, but not only the money, the partners and the people that kick in and help us here. Our businesses. Well, if I can't speak, I'll go, you tell me.
Would it help if we got whomever from workforce, board, whatever, sit down and talk with
Well, sure,
Terry,
sure.
Lisa,
Yeah,
some
I just-
board?
Yeah.
Let's set that up.
Marty's one, Marty's one of these, Marty or Jenny Bolts, her sister.
Just have them get, I wanna get involved with it, just have them get in touch with Terry and we'll set something up.
I'll give y'all, if I brought it, I'll give y'all a call. I tried to put together a bunch of stuff and help you understand what we do.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Well, sure we could get, that's what I hope would happen, y'all, would come. I just
wanna make sure, I think we do need to get together, and make sure we're maximizing not only what Mr. Steele was talking about, but there's other resources.
Which got our partners in there, all community colleges, everybody. We actually, I was gonna tell you, they get a lot of help with bus drivers in this program. We'll actually pay for bus driver training and pay them while they're taking the training, if they qualify. You gotta be low income. There's a lot of help for a lot of people.
So if we can get that information, we'll get a meeting set up with our staff, Dr. Arbogast and that person.
We can reach out to her very easily.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is discussion of procedures for emergencies during after-school extracurricular activities. Yes,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
yes, sir.
All right, I have good news and bad news. Which would you like first?
Bad news,
Start with the
bad news
why
first.
should we change?
Bad news first.
Let's keep the ball rolling.
Hydro seeding does not count as stabilized ground. It has to have substantial vegetative cover, which means you have to have grass growing.
Okay,
And I don't know if this is good news or not, maybe I'll just go.
He tricked us.
So we have to move the dirt to West Virginia.
what?
The dirt has to be moved out of state, not to count
Oh.
10,000 square.
Oh, okay, okay.
I guess you're the man.
No, we'll find somebody.
So if it goes to West Virginia, we,
No, I can't take it because that would be completely unethical for me to do that. I'm saying find somebody over there that could do it. I was never suggesting I do that.
Now,
Problem if you take it.
No, I understand, but somebody in the community might, that would be bad for all of us.
the information I received was, I think they built a Family Dollar, which is on the Virginia side. They had an excess of dirt. The contractor made a deal with the Peterstown Fire Department and moved the dirt over and filled in a hole or did something. Anyway, it has to go to West Virginia.
What about Mr. Hill?
Is this will be under the
What about Mr.
amount.
Hill? He lives in West Virginia.
Public.
yeah.
I just make sure we're in a public
Don't you say
procurement,
that.
and I think we can cost, there's people who probably be interested, like, to have that dirt if we gotta take it out of state. I just wanna make sure nobody gets in, this is the kind of little daggone thing, just like with the suggestion that, and I'm not saying that, that's a little daggone thing that gets us all in a mess of hot
So
water
Mr. Hill.
over a load of,
Well,
load of dirt.
Right.
you're right. As soon as somebody found out you got it, they said, well, he's on the board, that's all he did.
Yeah, I never, yeah.
Miss Helby's backyard.
That's what I just said. That's what I just
Anyway,
said.
That's the same, that'd be the same mess.
Oh,
What
that's
about,
true.
what about his mother's?
Same deal. He's a.
Well,
Well, Jerry Brown with the fire department, they're probably, aren't they trying to build a new fire department and that?
let's, why don't somebody reach out to something that's charitable there, 501c3 type organization that has property that would like to have that rather than us.
So what I told Mr. Reed in our conversation we just had, I said, I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to disturb 9,999 square feet currently. We're going to hydro seed it, destroy it. We're going to haul the dirt to West Virginia somewhere. And then we're going to probably come back in the spring and do another 10,000 square foot. So that was my best guesstimate with him. But I was,
That's the other number we can also buy.
Yes, I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, just say if they pay the hall fee, then.
Sweet.
so. I think we keep rolling. I'm sure somebody in Peterstown wants to.
So I guarantee it, I just think if you look at the charitable, like the fire department or something, that's.
We can't charge it for, I don't think it'd be, typically, it'd be a little bit expensive to buy dirt, but I think in our present situation, we can donate it to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
5013C. Are we
Okay.
all okay with that direction?
That's creative, I
Am
like
I
that.
asking that how much dirt? 10,000,
Well,
what am I
no,
asking?
Ask them if they want.
That's the stupid thing about it, it's the square footage you disturb, but it's cubic feet that you're taking out, so
You
that's the
go,
numbers.
you go straight down. I would
Yeah,
say
hold
I'd tell them between one and, Mr. Seal, 1 and 15 loads.
Yeah, because I think it was about 5 feet at its deepest disturbance there in the center.
I think it's gonna be between 1 and.
So if you average 3 feet across the entire 9,000 square feet, that's probably what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think 9 to 13,
cubic
yeah,
feet, 10,000 cubic yards.
yeah,
Between 1 and 15.
yes, yeah.
Tandem truck.
Yes, I think so. It is a lot, and then the
So I
topsoil,
needed like a dump truck. I needed like it in that figuration.
the first
pickup
3 feet was black, beautiful soil. He was getting ready to get into some clay, at
So
that,
it's good.
it's good.
Well, they're gonna have to stockpile that.
Yeah, there's no rocks in it, there's not a pebble in it.
I think it was filled from the original, or topsoil.
Probably topsoil.
Yeah, you can tell that the high school site was built up, and they kind of feathered.
That whole top was an old orchard.
Was it?
Yeah, so that's, you know, it was good, real good farmland. You've seen the picture before, right?
I have.
All right, you good?
I'm good.
Okay. So the next item, I've added this one, not because our facilities aren't doing an incredible job, but there's a little bit of an incident this past week that brought attention to my concern that we've done a really good job developing procedures for what we do when there is a emergency while we're in the classes and we're in traditional teaching environment. But I don't think we know exactly how to handle a situation when we've got a football team on the upper field, a football team on a different location. We've got a theater class in one room. We've got volleyball practice in a gym. And something brought to the attention of somebody in that building that there's danger somewhere on the campus. And so there is no protocol in place for that. Am I right?
We've addressed that through our crisis management team plans. I know there's, maybe not to the extent of what you're saying, but there's language in, I believe one of them that, you know, if we have an incident on a sport trip, this is what we're supposed to do, this, that, and the other. We could amend it and address it through a crisis management team plans. It's no different than an emergency during the school day with children at the ag lab, gym classes up on the fields, track, you know, out at the track. It's just the time of day.
It sounds like to me, I think there just needs to be better I might say, again, when I say better communication, I don't know the specifics for it, so I'm not faulting anybody, but we need to communicate what, you know, yeah, a gym teacher or the ag teachers may know with particular certainty, hey, because they're going to be facing it, this is what we do. We just need to make sure that coaches and sponsors and those things say, hey, you're in this area, this is what happens, you get a lockdown, you get a, you know, whatever code it is, just to make sure we're communicating that. And again, when I say that, I don't know anything that's going on, and I'm not faulting anyone for anything.
We could,
We can emphasize to them, make sure that they review and let.
Because there will be no one case fits all, but if there's a protocol that somebody, if they get a phone call or a radio and they're on the upper field, do they stay up there? Do they go to the bathroom facility? Do they go to Walmart? What is the?
It's all going to depend on what the situation is.
Right.
If the situation is within a school building and they're already outside, they're not going to be asked to come back to the building. They're going to be expected, you're already outside of it, you stay there. Your sponsor or coach or teaching staff, whoever it is already there with you. They've got you there. You're not going to come back to the building.
Especially
And I think ultimately it's just you guys assessing our current plans to make sure that it addresses after school situations sufficiently. If it does, then let's make sure that we are communicating that effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and again, otherwise, because I'm not ever going to, I review those school safety plans, but you and the sheriff's department have worked on those and are the experts. I'm not going to sit there and
I don't think we noticed this year's is much more substantial than previous years. So we, meaning the Giles County Sheriff's Office, John Butler Emergency Services, and the school system have worked very hard to update our crisis management plans to bring them more in line with the model policy of DCJS. We can address what you're asking, Mr. Steele, through our crisis management plan.
Sure.
We just need, I personally believe I need to consult the building administration and the sheriff's department and say, let's work together in finding a procedure. There's language in there, it just might need to be expanded, and we can amend that plan.
It may be already there, and it's just that each coach needs to sit down with their team and say, when and if this happens, and you hear me say these words,
You go do this,
this is what you do.
just like we do in our classrooms for the
Correct.
lockdown drill.
And I think we've done a great job communicating that situation. We just haven't talked, because the players in that situation and the coaches, to no fault of anybody on that campus, it came out of nowhere. It didn't end up being that big a deal, but they didn't really, where they were, the only place they thought they could get was in the locker room. The locker room door only locks from the outside, not the inside. So somebody had to lock and then run around the building to get, if we need to fix the lock from the outside and that, I mean, is that the right place they should have gone? Should they have gone?
They should have stayed where they were at, and probably gone to one location.
So I think-
If I'm on the upper field and I'm doing football, me personally, I would have taken the team, and this could be totally wrong, I don't know. And I would have stopped practice, I would have taken the team, and I would just sit there and waited for their.
Yeah.
So if you're on that upper field, the safest place, if there is a true threat within Giles High School, is to go to a hospital.
And
That's one of our-
you've probably got it, you've got it addressed in that plan. I think it's just making sure that coaches and sponsors communicate to their groups and say, if you hear me say this is what we do. Band, if we're practicing on this field and you hear me say it, this is where we go.
Yes,
If we're at the football field and you hear me say this is where we go.
yes.
And then there's no panic, and they know where they're supposed to go regardless.
Yes.
In that situation, I think they did a wonderful job out there, because they're all out of position. It's after school, and everything was done, from what I understand, over the phone. You know, a kid calls somebody calls administrator, and of course, they're all out, but they get to where they know the threat.
We will examine and take care of it.
Yeah.
Where they know, and they've got it.
Look at it and take care of
We'll
it.
get it, we'll address the concern.
Okay, yes.
Well, one thing related, and yeah, just remember this, once resource officers in their training, like it came up MOU, and he showed me a statute, the MOU that we have with the Sheriff's Department, the SROs needs to be posted on our website by statute. Check with Jim on that, just to make sure we're in compliance, especially since we got that brand new MOU.
We have to give their name?
No, I don't think we need to give the SRO's name. I think we have an MOU with the Sheriff's Department for the SROs. It was updated here recently.
He was just saying that in their training, they said that your MOU should be posted on your school website, and he didn't see it anywhere.
Okay.
And mentioned it to me, and I said I talked to Terry about it.
I'll verify it, and if we need to, we'll be posted there.
Okay. Any other discussion on that?
I have someone that'll take your dirt,
Oh,
but
Hey, wait a minute.
dirt's
Hey,
what's
you
under,
be careful what you're saying.
dirt's what's under,
I thought that's what was that,
Soil.
soil.
Oh, that's better.
dirt's what's under your fingernails, soil
Alright,
is what comes
but-
out of it.
They'll take all you have, but they're not interested in paying the hauling fee. Only because it's Peterstown Little League and it's all voluntary, it's not like they've got a lot of money, but they'll take the dirt.
What's the hauling fee? I mean, is it,
I mean,
Just talk to them, we'll talk about it after meeting. There'll be donation or something made, let somebody do something.
Okay, well, but Phil Shrewsbury said he'll take it.
I mean, $1,300.
We'll figure it out.
If you-
He just said, because, he said he's not trying to hardball anybody, they operate, he runs a concession stand, they don't have any money, but he'll take the dirt off your hands.
if you add 1,300 to what we're doing, we're still $20,000 cheaper than what it would have cost us.
Correct.
I mean, and
My opinion.
that's a rough, based on my haul fee I pay for gravel,
Somebody call Jimmy
$85.
Dillon and see if he'll do it for free.
There's probably a lot of people that feel favors, but he just said, I talked to him about the haul fee, and he goes, listen, we don't, He said, I'll take the dirt off.
Just see what you, something can be done, somebody can get this done.
Let me see if I can improve my negotiation skills, so.
Got it.
Yeah,
Just for a
we'll
good
make,
cause.
but Will may
That's what
haul
we-
it
that's
for
what I-
Phil for free.
Yeah, that's,
You know, Will and Phil,
I
Will,
know, there's a lot.
I mean, I don't know, I don't wanna volunteer that, but I mean, they could probably work.
Just talk to Will and Scott and then see if,
My next question is, do we have to have any type of written agreement with them to accept the dirt? I'm just asking.
I think we're complicating an issue.
I just wanna make sure that we don't have.
Look, I found a place.
I mean, Phil is, if Phil says he's gonna take it, he will.
He will.
He will take it.
Yeah.
Well, worst case, you can take that letter to Jim, draft it and
Yeah,
get Phil to sign it.
Cross, yeah.
I don't think we do, I was just,
But if, I
Cover,
think,
dotting your i's and crossing your t's.
yes,
I mean, if Phil signed that, then we don't have any,
actually, what I'm understanding and what I'm hearing is that's not necessary, and I'm gonna move forward to see if we can get dirt moved to something.
very good. All right. Our next topic, athletic trainer for Nares High School.
The information was shared with you, earlier, end of last week, earlier this week, when it was, about the information that I found out from speaking to other localities, as well as, our representative that we work with for the athletic trainers. So, I mean, I'm not sure, and where we have a posting, and I don't know that it's posted yet. It's posted, so it is posted now, for Nares High School. Went up yesterday,
Tuesday.
Tuesday, you put it up Tuesday? Okay. So it is posted currently. I have not asked, Carillion, the on-site to take down their posting. I don't think it's wise to ask them to take their posting down, because they may find somebody when we don't. Or vice versa, if we were to find somebody, then we could communicate with them that we found somebody for Nares High School, you can remove the posting. But I don't think it's wise right now to ask them to take theirs down.
No, I think get it any way we can get it.
Diversify our opportunities for sure.
And they're also looking at, what kind of notification letter, what that would look like if they would have to provide us something, if it happened to be an employee on their side.
Any progress in getting a substitute or something, I mean, yeah, we've got 4 of 10 football games covered, and one of that's because it's at Giles. And these kids are suffering.
What I do know from speaking to other, entities or in other divisions, on what they have done, I was trying to think who it was. Could pay a school nurse. It'd be overtime though if you do a school nurse.
We've got to look at something, the kids, I mean, when I've got a certain, person taping up kids that he's doing the best he can, it's not good, they're not getting any rehab. You know, they're not getting some of these kids that are getting hurt are the ones that parents gonna need the guidance that you get with the trainer and calling the ortho or whomever it is to make sure that they're getting the follow-up care they need to heal and not do further damage.
Could check with, they could check with the, local EMTs as well.
So even if it's not the school nurse, maybe a nurse,
It could be a nurse.
like a RN.
Could be any
Like I said,
RN.
somebody
Could be
even,
any RN.
I mean, maybe somebody's kid's mom needs some extra money, and we just pay it to be a separate contract.
Yeah, we do have to do a work agreement with them.
Check with county, see if they know any EMTs or Korean or anything that we could get. Like I said, it's just, it's difficult.
Who was the person who came to us about providing the,
Tanya, she is the school nurse, and she is an RN, so
but she was gonna do that, the rehabilitation.
She's still doing the,
she's still doing that.
so
It wasn't a TANG machine, it was, yeah.
but she's still doing that. Because I spoke to her a couple weeks ago and told them, get the work agreement, continue that.
Is that a possibility, or is that?
And I guess you would have to talk to her if she would want
Well, I
us,
mean, you have to, yeah,
she'd be
you have to talk,
staying
see if she wants
after.
that. Two, that would be different than what she's doing with the,
That's more of a, okay, I got a serious injury, I'm rehabbing versus a kid twisting an ankle and being able to, you know, just send the kid up to check it out. You know,
but it could, I mean, I think it could be any RN. I just said school nurse because I know we have school nurses, but it could be any RN that would be interested, I believe.
Would it even have to be the same RN? I know
You could,
James Monroe does that, like, they can't find trainers and they'll be RNs, cause it's hard for somebody to commit to every game, but they might work with two that'll commit.
and
every
it's
game.
not just games, they need to be there at practice because, I mean, things happen.
Yeah, and see that, then they use EMTs for that, because, I mean, it's just,
I mean, once you've had it, you can't go back.
no, I know, yeah.
Do we need to advertise for that position as well? In the part-time arena?
I think you do. I think you put something out there that you know, and I think it's more of, hey, we're looking for EMTs, RNs, some folks that would fit the licensure to talk about an arrangement to be able to, you know, do what we're gonna do part-time. You know, we're flexible, we don't have a real definition of what it is, but, you know, anything's better than nothing.
we put together some sort of posting about that part-time, EMT, RN, part-time. That's what it would be a part-time.
Have we reached out to like Virginia Tech?
I'd actually, as part of that conversation with the, other divisions, I did reach out to RU, but I have not heard back from RU.
And I think Mr. McLaurin reached out to Concord, they got a program. So. It's just the problem that they changed. And I don't understand, you think they would be able to get some hours, but I guess they have to have supervised
You
hours.
gotta have supervised hours.
And you gotta have a master's degree to do this.
It would always have to be like their head trainer would have to be
Master's
there.
degree. Last year, was the last year you could graduate with a bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are doing it now with the bachelors, are they grandfathered in?
They're open, I mean, they've got certification they're taking, but moving forward, they'll have to graduate with a master's.
And they're just covering themselves is all they've done.
Right.
And then didn't realize what that would do to us.
This is a need that the kids are suffering from, and absolutely right, we gotta have that. And,
So we're good advertising for part-time with proper certification to try to do anything
right,
to bridge the gap.
absolutely.
And you really might get some RNs that's tired
Anything,
or.
they may see that in any, you know, and,
Michelle would have time, because she's got hours,
But she'd love to do that if
but
she,
like late, you know.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
We'll work on getting some put out there as well for the part-time work agreement for either an EMT, RN,
I mean,
somebody
Alyssa,
has
that's
the
why
ability
might be interested.
Yeah.
to fill in.
She has a schedule,
that,
you know what I
right.
mean?
Mm-hmm. But the way we're talking about setting it up, if you had somebody
Trainer
only do
Giles has drives
this,
from Roanoke.
this times.
Drives from Roanoke every,
I mean, you know, but like she looked at the
And-
schedule, and she was off, she only worked so many days.
Right.
She could.
Do y'all have EMTs that go to the game, every game, pretty much?
We do, there was, once or twice we had a scheduling where they've had a wreck down, I think Glenland was, we had a situation one time where a kid dislocated his elbow and they didn't have anybody there because they were down somewhere else on a wreck.
They'll say if one of them might be interested in doing it, then if they were They couldn't leave, they'd have to stay at the game.
Yeah, well, I think those are all the things you, yeah, look at.
Cause it might be that you have one person that says, yeah, I'll do every game, every home game. And then that would be their part of providing that service, would be every home game and for whatever sport. And then there might be another person that it worked out better for them to do practices.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever that combination looked like until we can get a full person, at least we're getting some coverage.
We'll have to verify what that looks like if it's an RN EMT, because I know the athletic trainer has to work under a doctor. So we'll have to see what that looks like as well.
Yeah, okay.
So we talked about this before, but the risk we take on not following that to the nines is somebody provides service to a kid and does it incorrectly, then everybody's in big trouble. Okay. All right, next item is update on facility items.
He's head coach. This defense.
Was that the extent of
We've already
that?
talked about the baseball field. So.
Okay,
Baseball field was one of the items. I had several others to talk about as well. One, very simple, just to update you, I sent that to you yesterday. Giles High School, tracked the runways and the, high jump area. That work, was completed on August, the 18th, 2 weeks ago.
Take a look at it,
And
take a look at it.
it looks much nicer, looks like what it should have been.
I don't, yeah.
And they have not been back to paint it yet that I'm aware of. I have not heard that they're coming back, they have come back, but they will come back to paint the lines on the two runways, based on information that we were given that had been verified by the high school, and we've given it back to them.
I should have taken a picture of it, Dr. Arbogast, but for the board's information, the reason that failure occurred may have been weather related, but when we took a section of that was put on those runways and held it up, you could see through it. Terry had it in the back of one of those.
Still in the back of the van, I'm sure.
And we finally did,
Maybe, they cleaned it out yesterday, so it may not be there.
so our ZMM person that watched the reapplication finally did squeeze out of one of the people that most likely they were far from home, ran out of product, late in the week, just wanted to try to get the project wrapped up, and the last two things they had was the long jump, or the high jump area and the hits. So they got,
The most.
they just got what product they had left, and, I mean, they get shipped to another project somewhere else in the country, so
They keep moving, it finished Friday, they finished the last coat of seal on Friday morning. They weren't happy, the crew wasn't real happy, they were hoping they were gonna be done Thursday so they could go home, but that's not the way, they put the last coat Friday morning before. And that's why, the grass wasn't mowed. We told them, do not mow around those two areas, because we are not going to be the reason that they're gonna blame anything on us for anything with those two areas. So that's why that stuff wasn't done. We told them not to.
And I think the lesson learned on that, anything we're doing that is outside of the county's activities, I don't say we spend a minute on it, but somebody needs to be watching, taking notes, taking pictures, and documenting that it's being done per the specifications.
And if you want more, I mean, what I sent you is just, it really is, all that is a summary.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I can give you, I can copy if you want to, a report for Tuesday the 15th that goes into more times, what occurred at what time, this and pictures. The same thing for the 16th, the same thing for the 17th, and the 18th really is not as long. But there is an individual report for each of the days that goes into more detail, the timing, when what was put down, how it was put down, et cetera, with pictures that are associated by day. So if you need that, want that, let me know. I didn't figure you wanted it. but you said you wanted to.
So I got my-
wanted to see something.
No, that's his file, that's,
Well, as I said, I offered just in case you wanted to see it.
it's a shame you can't trust people to do good work even when nobody's watching anymore, but sometimes you can.
Mr. Steele, I will say that ZMM,
They did a nice job.
they did a nice job, very nice job. I mean, they had somebody there the entire time,
Yeah,
and they wrote a very detailed report as you had requested.
that's good.
Yep.
That's good, so. Anything else on facility items?
Yes, sir, I've got 2 more.
Okay,
Giles High School football lights.
oh yeah, that's right.
Shared information with you. We've talked about this, talked about it the last work session. You gave the go-ahead to proceed with the proposal using ICO, the proposal that would have installed ICO brand lights for $120,000. We have been, Dr. Brown has been communicating, talking with ZMM architects to verify that the ICO brand is what we actually want. And to see whether, let's get some specs on them, to see if there's other divisions that have installed those types of lights, et cetera. Recently, in the last week, it was shared with us by the architect that the best way to describe the proposals that were given to us, because we only received one proposal and they gave us 3 options. ICO brand, Cooper, and Beacon. ICO is what they described as the discount option that will light a field, but those are really more or less industrial high bay floodlights, repurposed for sports lighting. Cooper is a brand name that's going to provide us with what we want. It's gonna have a little bit longer lifespan. The photometrics going to meet the levels that are desired and be more evenly distributed across the field, across the area. It's a dedicated sports light fixture. And again, it's a bigger brand name, but unfortunately, that comes with a higher cost. And that cost is $160,000.
So what did we spec? Did we
We
specify?
spec Beacon, we wrote the spec was written around Beacon, which is a Hubble fixture.
Mm-hmm.
Beacon was $250,000.
Right,
That's
right.
the quotes we had, the price we had that were at $250,000.
ZMM confident on the Cooper?
ZMM highly recommends the Cooper version versus the ICO version.
Frankie, Mr. Cantos already has the photometrics from Cooper, which meet our needs. Might need a few shields to dial it in, shades to dial it in. His strong recommendation was not to use the first brand. One of the reasons why was the control boards. There is the life expectancy for Cooper is 1.5 times greater than ICO. Plus, there was a question of being able to get the first brand if we had an issue, being able to purchase it as a replacement.
What was their budget?
130, 135, 140.
I think, my feeling on it hasn't changed. We're going to end up getting, if Giles ends up having to move games in the future, we're losing money. We're going to end up funding the crowd, we're going to end up funding the athletic fund, everything. I think next Wednesday we take that, just get the blessing, say, hey guys, this is Yeah,
If it needs to be, if it's gonna be done, it needs to be done correctly. We don't wanna put something together and have something done that, one, we don't have any other, that we know of anybody else that's used them, and two, that it's not gonna provide what's necessary for the activities.
Well, it's, you know, it's 30% over what our budget was for it, and just to make sure, and especially if you're saying these bells and whistles are coming with it, I want those guys to be able to ask questions about it, and just, the board supervisors want to make
Yes.
that 2-on-2.
So I will say our next option is 250,000.
Let's just, look,
Yeah. You know,
nobody's disputing that.
Yeah.
They're not gonna dispute it, but it's one of those things, somebody in the community, they're asking about why'd you spend $160,000 on the lights and jobs. I like them to be able to ask and have questions answered, ask them and have them answered so they can talk to their folks about it.
I'm glad we waited and we did our due diligence, because I would have hated to come back to you as a board 3 or 4 years into it, guys, we're having problems with our brand new lights we just installed, and oh, by the way, we can't purchase. You know, it's not good news, but I think it's gonna save us some money in the long run. And it's gonna give Giles something that I hope they're proud of, and we're proud of as well for our students. We are kind of running a little tight on our approval window. I don't know exactly where we're at. I think we got 60 or 30? Was it 30 days or 60 days?
Should be 60.
60, yeah, so we might.
I mean, we're gonna do it, I just, even if you talk about that, that's just something to be prepared to address, because that's a big chunk of carryover facility type money, and, you know.
Yes, sir. To be crystal clear, are you asking that we wait before we enter into an agreement with DCI Shires? Wait till next Wednesday to get the official blessing, or is it something we can enter into our agreement with ZMM and DCI Shires?
I say go ahead, in my opinion.
I would say recommend they get everything knocked out from a contractual standpoint based on this higher number. We can have them sign, which would be the DCI Shires folks on the dotted line, and then all that's left for us, they can go ahead and get started, whatever, shop drawing submissions, and then that next week, all we do is say go, and then you ink it, and we're done.
No, we're gonna do it, I just, like I said, this is.
Just wanna go through we need to go through the process to make sure everything.
Right, but they need, yeah.
They need to start getting moved.
They need to start
Because we're
getting.
gonna order fixtures. If we go, they're probably gonna order stuff.
Well, and the thing is, we're not, you know, it would be different if we could get them installed this year, but I think,
I don't know what the lead time is.
I thought last time we discussed it, it wasn't likely to be able to happen because of
The lead time on the ICO was pretty good. I don't know what the lead time on the.
I mean, you're asking to get it done in a 2-week process that would be difficult at this point now, and in a couple open weeks, yeah. So I mean, we're not affecting when this thing's gonna be installed, we're just, yeah.
All I'm saying is it's gonna take some time for them to adjust numbers from the 120 to the 160. They can be doing all their paperwork the rest of this week, the beginning of next, and once all we're gonna be doing is saying go, they will have already done all of their agreement preparation, giving that to you, so on and so forth. And then they're not waiting to do that till after our meeting.
Anything else? Sharing this with you as well. Giles High School softball field, shared that with you the other day as well. They want a backstop installed on the softball field. 6 20-foot tall pipes put on top of 3x3x3 piers. They'll have plates welded on them, et cetera. Similar to what was done to baseball field. We were asked to make sure that that architects provided the seal on these plans. And that's gonna be it's gonna be a cost not to exceed $3,200.
That one is perplexing to me. I'm not certain. We've done a lot of backstop improvement on both facilities, and we've never had to get an architectural seal. This is not a load-bearing piece this is not a structure that's load-bearing. It's not gonna be occupied by someone. I'm not sure was there a reason given to you why we need to have an architectural seal which would mean that we're gonna have to get somebody to design or at least review some type of an engineering document. Are we just trying to change the narrative a little bit on, or minor upgrades? This is not I guess that's.
This is a request that came to me,
From you or to you?
to me.
Okay. Cause we can do an awful lot of stuff with $3,200.
The information that was provided to me by ZMM is a not to exceed, and I'm hoping
It'll be less.
I'm hoping it's gonna be way, way less because, there's no per se drawing, maybe a sketch, that's gonna be provided. I think this will satisfy that request that was made to me.
I'm a little hesitant to set a precedent that every time we turn a bolt or put a post in the ground for a fence, that we're gonna have to do some kind of a architectural seal. Was there a code reference that requires us?
It was a request that came to me, yeah.
Let me verify.
Yeah.
Why.
I do not wanna do anything that's not required by code.
And I'll tell you what I'm told why. I don't know.
Yeah, let's check that out.
I tried. But
So help me understand the magnitude. Are we putting a footing and a wall, and then the poles that support the backstop are gonna be in that footing and wall?
Plan is to dig a footer, lay 8-inch block wall approximately 4 courses up from ground level. Plan to set 6 poles vertically, 20 foot tall. Plan was to have a 3x3x3 pier under each pole with 4 1-inch J bolts in the pier. They'll weld a 12x12 1-inch plate to the bottom of the pole and bolt it to the pier. At that point, they'd run the cables, hang the netting, basically just like the backstop on the baseball field.
My speculation, Mr. Steele, is maybe wind load for the netting. I know it's a net, but you still have some wind load on that.
I think the only difference between that backstop and the softball field and baseball backstop is baseball backstop, I think it's 30 foot tall. These are 20 feet.
Do we have to do this for the baseball field?
Not to my knowledge.
That's what like Stevie, I don't understand why all of a sudden you're having to do it now.
We can.
Let me clarify why. That's what I say, let me clarify why I was.
We're partners, and I don't wanna.
And the thing is, they're ready to go. They want to, and I know they want to, and I get it. They want to get some things done before the weather turns bad. So we're kind of a little bit of a time crunch. So I was trying, just like our baseball field project, I'm trying to expedite this along, but we will clarify some information, and hopefully I can do that today.
Out of this, it'd be helpful to understand what will and will not require some type of engineering seal as we develop facility improvement activities, because the county does a lot of stuff for us and they just make it happen. And so that's the beauty of that partnership, is we're very efficient at being able to make things go. Is there a threshold where we need to know when we're gonna need a seal and when we don't for certain things?
I can seek clarification on that.
Okay,
Steve?
yes. Anything else on
the only thing I.
Facility items.
Last facilities that at this time. I think there's other things we need to talk about as well, before we.
So you wanna do the calendar and then come back?
Well, I think we need to go to closed session, to talk a bit about a couple of student matters.
Okay,
And then after we talk about the calendar.
okay.
What I took for part of the conversation, we had, I think at the last work session, was look at when we start compared to what others start. So what you have there is a document that shows the other counties around us. It shows their starting date, their last day, their Christmas break, spring break, fall break, if they have one, whatever it might be. We'll also see by month, number of teacher work days in the month, the number of, when it says days, that means instructional days, student instructional days, listed there. So you get an idea of how many days each semester is for each division around us, and what their calendar looks like. So you can look at. Also, I think part of that conversation was our calendar, what be based on 180 days or 990 hours. I reached out to other divisions within Region 7. There are 19 divisions in Region 7 counting us. I had 12 responses counting us. Take ours out, 11 of those responses, they set their calendar build it on 180 days. And then depending on the weather, they go from there. If they have a lot of snow days, then we make sure that it meets 990 hours.
How's Montgomery County just doing 173 days?
That I do not know, because I did not call them to ask them whether they're counting hours, because they're not in our region.
Because ultimately, that's who they're comparing us to. And I've done told them a million times, you can't do that. We don't have a multi-million-dollar university sitting in our county.
I would make an assumption, and if making an assumption is not a good thing to do, so I'm reluctant to say what they're doing, because I have not spoken to anybody to know.
Well, they do have 6 less holidays than we do. I don't know that has any impact on instructional.
Still, and then no, because I tried to count based on looking at each school division's calendar, looked at the month, counted the number of work days and instructional days, and that's what you see there. So you see how many total days that they have.
I guess, so Radford and us, we're the only ones that don't end the first semester before December. I mean, before January.
Based on that information, that's correct, yes, sir. And if you want to see each one of the calendars, I've got their calendars here. I'd be more than welcome to scan them in and send them to you if you're interested in seeing them, but.
He confirmed the anecdotal evidence that I was operating on, so thank you.
I apologize to all of you. All I was trying to do was bring some stuff that maybe help some of our kids. I'm so really sorry that you want to play politics with it.
I don't know what that means,
You
Jay.
know exactly what it was.
You were given the opportunity by Amanda to meet with us this morning, and she said you didn't call her back.
You know what you told me a couple Saturdays ago, do you?
Okay, you're welcome at any meeting.
I like it is. Well, I'm gonna be back, trust me.
Okay,
I don't know what else you want to see from the other calendar information standpoint. Mr. Pennington, I can find out an answer to that question and provide that. If you're interested in knowing that, I will reach out. But if there's something else you want to see, please let me know on the calendar. I don't know what other information you may want.
Thank you. I mean, it just solidifies the concern that I put out there last meeting.
Okay. I think we need to go to closed session, see if there's some questions. And we have questions about some students that we need to.
Just student issues.
Student issues that we're talking about.
I move to go to closed session so that we can discuss student discipline issues as exempted by Virginia Code.
Second.
Got a motion second, all those in favor?
See you, Serena. I'll pay her money too.
Huh?
Said we all pay her money to come to the meetings too.
Can you hit end stream there?
She is dedicated.